what birthed this particular company? Why did Cocoon have to be made?
Yeah, hey Caroline, thanks for having us. Cocoon really got founded when we saw a lot of our friends and coworkers go through really, really tough leave experiences. So, as you pointed out, whether it's a medical leave, a caregiver leave, parental bereavement, the process is so complicated for the individual going on leave, navigating all of these different leave laws, figuring out how to get paid, filing different claims. Also, really complicated for the employer, navigating a lot of leave compliance with employees spread across the state or the country, even other countries, and in terms of figuring out really complicated payroll calculations. So after we heard a lot of these personal stories about how difficult it was to take leave and how much time went into the admin of leave instead of being able to focus on the reason that you're taking leave, we realized that there had to be a better way to do that, especially in this day and age. And so we set out to really build that experience that makes it so simple and straightforward for the individual and really, really easy for the employer as well, to allow their employees to take leave.
And Chauncey, of course, you wanted to get in, to participate in the funding. How much do you see the demand growth for this? How much do you see the necessity, particularly here in the United States, which, I mean, shockingly is basically the only developed nation that doesn't have a mandatory sort of paid leave, particularly from a parental perspective, but the administration sort of shining a light on this, and maybe we'll see some change from a government level.
I certainly hope so, Caroline. So when I first met Mahima and Amber and Lauren and what they were building, I was like, immediately wanted to work with them. This was not only a product that I knew needed to be built firsthand. I met Mahima when I was 5 months pregnant with my second child and had already taken a parental leave and knew how opaque the process is. And I could see the demand on the employer side. You know, I think that it's table stakes now for employers to offer competitive leave packages, whether it's parental, medical, bereavement leave. And when we went to go due diligence on this investment, the immense pull there was something that we knew we needed to be involved with this business from the first day.
Mahima, when people are now working from home partially, and when there is also such a need, what we've seen in the COVID crisis is the caregiving crisis, basically, whether it be mother with children unable to go into school, the father, or indeed looking after your elderly loved ones or those who fell ill from COVID. How has you managed to adapt to that? How much bigger is the market becoming day in, day out?
I think leave is not a new problem. It's always been extremely challenging for somebody to take a leave. But with COVID, two things happened. One, there was a lot more distributed workforces. So when employers were thinking about, I have an employee in California taking a caregiver leave and an employee in Washington taking an organ donor leave and so forth, spread out across, again, the country and even other countries, I think the whole process of actually administering a leave policy got a lot more complicated. So it was one huge factor. And the other is actually, I think COVID really changed employee mindset. It made employees realize that what they really want is for their employers to step up in these really big life moments. They may happen infrequently, but when they happen is when you really need that help and support. And so I think the expectation of the role that an employer plays really changed during COVID times as well.
Chauncey, what are perhaps some of the challenges? We've talked about a lot of the opportunities, but the challenges about growing these sorts of businesses, scaling them, and ensuring that, you know, the companies want to enroll them and help iron out some of these difficulties?
You know, haven't seen any of those challenges yet. I mean, there's immense pull for this product at the middle market, which is where Cocoon is selling into right now. I think the only challenge we might foresee in like the days to come is that how many companies can we onboard and how quickly can we onboard them? Because truly, it's, I think that the perspective around benefits has shifted so significantly since the pandemic that companies know that in order to retain and attract talent, they really need to have a competitive benefit offering, and that it has to include a better paid family and medical leave.
Mahima, what tends to be the biggest pain point? Is it, obviously it's the opaque nature of it, but sometimes it's, you know, filling your role when you leave, ensuring that you leave the company in a good, strong place when you're exiting. But for the employer, what are their key pain points?
I think for the employer, a lot of it boils down to compliance, being compliant with the many, many changing leave laws at the federal level, the state level, A huge component is that pay for an employee can often come from a lot of different sources. So some pay might be coming from the state of California or Washington. Some pay might be coming from a disability provider. The employer is then trying to figure out, well, what is our own paid policy? How much do we owe this employee during the course of their leave? What does that mean for taxes? And so there's the administrative aspects that become really hard for an employer. And when their time gets sucked into that, there's so much less room for the empathy and the big-heartedness around leave in terms of actually supporting that employee who's going out, or supporting the manager and making sure that the team is set up for success. And so with Cocoon, we're really trying to take away all the admin and the headache and stress so that for the employee, it can be really straightforward and they can focus on why they took leave, and that employer can focus on really supporting the employee in the ways that they need it most.
And very briefly, Chauncey, can you see ever the federal landscape making things slightly easier in any way, or is it always going to be very difficult from a state-by-state level, let alone international businesses?
Yeah, no, as you mentioned, Caroline, like I think that the U.S. And compared to our peer countries has one of the worst leave policies because we don't have one. And so I'm really hopeful that our policymakers can get something passed that would offer like every American the opportunity to have paid family and medical leave. I think it's table stakes. I think after this pandemic, people are tired. We want to take care of our loved ones. We want to have the space to take care of our own health. We want to have the space to take care of our children. And so I'm really, really hoping that we see some action on this front soon.